Okay. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to see everyone joining from all kinds of places from the country. Um, Today's session, as we had mentioned in the announcement, is going to be about making deep observations and observing bird behavior and focusing on what birds are doing and what other animals around them are doing, and adding and how that adds value to our experience of appreciating nature and being in nature. And for that, we have Ishika with us today. Hi, Ishika. Thank you so much for joining. Ishika is actually currently doing her research, and she is in the field right now, and she's joining us from the field. So really, we're all very thankful for that, Ishika. Thank you for taking the time out and doing this for us.
You're
And
very
like,
welcome.
and like always, there are some ground rules to this session. One is that during the session, we'll keep everybody on mute to avoid chaos, but it's going to be very interactive. So at any point, if you have any questions, Ishika is going to keep asking you a lot of questions. Just either raise your hand like this or use the reaction button. Can you all use the reaction button to raise your hand? Let's see. Quickly just do that right now. In the bottom panel, you will see under reactions, there is a raise hand option. Excellent, excellent. A lot of you are able to do that. Great. Okay. And then at any point, if you're not able to either raise your hand or unmute yourself, or we are probably not able to see that you've raised your hand, you can type your question or your answer or your doubt in the chat box. Okay. All right.
Super.
Yeah. And towards the end, we will have a question and answer session, of course. And during the session, there are some activities. So I hope you've all brought a notebook and some writing implements. If not, you can quickly go run now and get them. All right. Okay. I think we can start now. Over to you, Ishika.
Okay, thanks so much, Misha. And thanks so much, all of you, for joining in on a Sunday morning. It's always such a joy to do these kind of sessions. And when Misha asked me to do this for you, and giving me a chance to talk about bird behavior, of course, I was so excited to do so. So I'm very happy to meet all of you, and I hope I get to know you and your interests a little more through today's session. So I'm just going to share my screen right now. Can all of you see a big yellow slide which says, what is that bird doing? Awesome. Okay. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm currently doing my PhD. And like I said in the chat box, I'm currently in Assam, which is where I work. And even though I really, really love birds and I spend every possible moment observing them and watching them, my full-time job is to study monkeys. And I spend a lot of time with different species of monkeys and primates, including us, right? Because human beings are also primates and we are also ape species. So I spend a lot of time with monkeys, and every opportunity I get, spend a lot of time with birds. And at some times like today, when Misha gives me an opportunity, I also get to interact with cool kids like you who are already into birding, which is so, so cool. So just to start you off, here is a collage of birds that I saw growing up when I was your age. And these are a bunch of pictures that I took when I was in high school, just from my home window in Bombay. And they really got me very curious about birds. Half the time, I didn't really know what their names were or why they were doing what they were doing, but I really loved watching them. And I think that's because, they were winged and they could fly and they were different colors and they could reach places that I could never dream of reaching. And I think that really fascinated me. And so I kept watching them even before I knew what they were. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures really quickly. Okay, I've drawn some really common birds, which I think all of you should have been able to see no matter where you are in the country. I think from all the places you guys put down in the chat box, you should have seen these birds. Okay, so at this point, we're still going to let you unmute yourself, and I'd love it for you to be absolutely chaotic, yell your answers. Okay, so as soon as you think you know what this bird is, you can yell your answer. Okay, and you can read out the descriptions that I've put along with my drawings for clues in case you're not quite sure what the bird is. Is everyone ready? Yeah? Okay, let's go.
Cool.
Koel.
Asian quail.
Okay.
Asian koel.
So everyone agrees?
Yes.
Asian koel.
Yes.
You're right. Absolutely right. Okay, you guys are too smart. Let's try the next one.
Tailor bird.
Tailor bird.
Tailor bird.
Tailor bird.
Tailor bird.
Tailor bird.
Bird.
You're all right again. Yes.
Parrot.
Does anyone know what kind?
Rose-ring parakeet.
Rose-ring parakeet.
Fantastic.
Rose-ring parakeet.
Okay, the last one.
Red-whiskered bull.
Red-whiskered bull.
Red-whiskered bull. White-cheeked red-whiskered bull. Red-whiskered bull.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Okay, good job, guys. Clearly, you all know your birds really well. Okay, let me just, should we maybe disable annotation? Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. So, like I was saying, guys, clearly you all know a lot more about birds at your age than I ever did, because I saw a lot of these guys and had no idea what their names were for a very long time. But yeah, I think what I really always loved about the birds I was watching is just observing what they were doing, right? And I got really interested in animal behavior from a very, very young age. And while I got interested in studying animal behavior and trying to understand it better, I stumbled upon this incredible world of primates, right? Can anyone tell me what is a primate? What do you think a primate is? Are all of these fellows on the slide right now a primate? Yes, Vishwa, go ahead.
The primates are our ancestors, which were the first people to make us out in humans.
Okay, that's a very cool answer. Thanks, Vishwa. Anyone else? What do you think a primate is? Yes, go ahead. Dakshinesh.
Primates are creatures like monkeys, lemurs, apes, which have hands, legs, and eyes facing the front.
Okay, wow, very cool answer. Mahmoud Azam, go ahead.
Ma'am, primates are the descendants of the same hairy ancestors as ours.
Okay, yeah, all of you are quite right till now. Anika, sorry, go ahead.
So primates are like monkeys and apes who lived before us and now they've turned into us.
Okay, so then in that case, do you still see primates around? Have you ever seen a monkey in your life? Yeah?
Yes.
So if monkeys became
Yes.
people, why are they still monkeys? Are they also going to turn into people? What do you think? Yes, Mohammad Azam. Is your hand still raised from last time or do you have an answer? Okay. Okay, we also have in the comments mammals that reproduce, but even other mammals reproduce, right? Okay, I'm asking you very difficult questions now. But yeah, I think all of you were very right. We have shared ancestry and we've all evolved from similar species long, long ago. And we've all gone into very different directions. Right now, there are so many species of primates across the world, right? There's about 700 species of primates in the whole world. And out of them, there are 25 species of primates which are in India itself. And all the pictures you see here on this slide are primate species that you find in our country. And I am very lucky to be able to study a bunch of them. So I'm going to tell you in detail about a couple of them as we also talk about how birds influence their lives. Yeah? Can any of you quickly guess any of the primates on this slide quickly before I move on to the next one? Have you seen any?
In the
There is a langur at the top left of screen. Langur.
There
Yeah.
are long-tailed
there's an
macaques.
orangutan there.
There's an orangutan.
There
Where
are
is the
lion-
orangutan? Someone said lion-tailed macaque. That's right. Just unmute and scream it out. No problem. Don't have to raise your
And
hand.
there are some rhesus macaques.
Yeah, that's right. Hanuman-tailed langur, Indian macaque. Okay, you guys have some idea of it and some of the words. So we'll explore a little more as we go along.
Riti says there's a loris also.
Oh, well done. Yeah, there are lorises as well. So in India, you have lorises, which are these small nocturnal primates. Then you have macaques, which is what we see a lot around our cities. You have langurs, which are the bigger ones with long tails. And then you have apes, right? So there are these 4 types of primates that you find in our country. So, and of course, many species of each one. So I'll take you along a journey of my own career a little bit and how I came to study animal behavior. And the very first time I got to study monkeys, I started my journey by getting on this ship. And basically what I was doing is I was going from Bangalore, where I was studying, all the way to an island called Great Nicobar. Has anyone heard of the island Great Nicobar before?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, so it's really far off, as you can see, from the mainland of India, right? And it takes a long time to get there. It takes about 3 days to by ship to go, and it's a long journey. And the reason I went there is because this really cool species of macaque is found over there on that island. And they're only found on 3 of these islands, way off into the east coast of India and nowhere else in the world. So this is a kind of macaque. Can any of you guess what the name of this macaque might be? What would you name this macaque if you could name this macaque?
Viking macaque.
Ooh, I love that. Nice. Okay. Bushy eyebrowed macaque. Yeah, totally apt. Yes.
I would like to name it a mustached macaque.
I really love these names. I love these names even more than the actual name of the macaque.
Oh,
Any
there's
others?
Raghav says Nicobar macaque.
Icelandic macaque.
Icelandic macaque. Nice.
Ooh, very nice. Okay, so
Long-tailed macaque. White-cheeked
wow.
macaque.
Interesting. White-cheeked macaque is actually another macaque species in India, but not this one. So that's amazing. Clearly, all of you can be both birders and primatologists. Like you have all the skills, guys. That's amazing. Oh, chubby-faced macaque. I really love that. These names are so good. I feel like I should go back to the people who discovered this species and say that you chose quite a boring name. But one of you actually guessed correctly. This is the long-tailed macaque. And specifically in India, it's called the Nicobar long-tailed macaque. So actually a couple of you were right. And there are other species of long-tailed macaque in Southeast Asia, but this is the only one found in India. So I went here because these macaques, even in a small island, live in many different kinds of habitats. So you find some groups of the long-tailed macaque in these beautiful, really old, prehistoric rainforests. And they're still really dense, they're still intact, and they're beautiful. It's very hard to find rainforests like this anywhere else in India. They also sometimes spend their time in the village with people. And some people also have issues with the macaques because they come into their homes, they do a lot of masti, they cause some destruction here and there, they'll eat their coconuts, they chase their dogs. But at the same time, people also really love them, you know, because they are so interesting to look at, they are furry, they do very interesting behaviors. And so people have an interesting relationship with the macaques on this island. So you do see a lot of groups like this coming in very close and living with people. And some groups you also find living by the sea. And since it's an island, it's got this really beautiful coastline with these incredible blue waters. And they sleep near the sea. Sometimes they come out to feed and look for food on the beach. So I had a wonderful time studying them because I got to follow them as they were passing through each and every one of these habitats, right? I would get to walk through some of those really dense rainforests. I'd get to spend time by the sea and feel the sea breeze on my face and listen to the crashing waves. And I also got to spend a lot of time with people, getting to know more about their relationships with the macaques in the villages. So like you can see over here, over time, I had to get the macaques to trust me, to allow me to follow them really closely. It takes a lot of patience and time to study animal behavior. So the very first thing that I would have to do is start spending a lot of time with the group of macaques called a troop. And the more time I would spend with them, the more they would trust me and the more they would be sure that I wouldn't do anything to harm them or hurt them. So they started letting me come closer and closer. And when I spent more time with them, I also started observing them closely and seeing how each one's face is a little different. Each one has slightly different body structures. And so I was able to identify different individuals from this troop of monkeys. And so I was able to tell who was engaging in what behavior, who was doing what. And I would note down what they were doing through the day. And so I would be with them from really early in the morning, from about 5 o'clock in the morning till about 6 p.m. in the evening, all until they went to sleep. So here, in fact, you can see there was one particular day where these macaques had stolen my binoculars when I left them unattended. And this is me just waiting, hoping they would give them back. But one of the reasons I wanted to show you all those habitats also was because I also got to see so many incredible and rare species of birds just because I was following them in these very different landscapes. And I'm sure all of you already know that depending on the environment, depending on the different kind of habitat, you're going to see different kinds of birds, right? So let's have a look at some of the highlight birds of mine from the time that I spent in Nicobar. Does anyone know what bird this is?
White-tailed eagle.
White-billed eagle?
White-Bellied Sea Eagles.
Wow, okay. So where do you find this bird?
Nicobar Islands.
Okay, but what kind of habitat?
Are they like coastal birds who live around the coast of islands? And
Okay, how many of you have actually seen this bird? Can raise your hands if you have. Raghav, okay. Anyone else? Okay, Anirudh, awesome. So a couple of you were right. This is the white-bellied sea eagle, and it is one of my absolute favorite birds because, again, even before I knew what this bird was, I was just so taken in by how large and graceful and just so beautiful this bird is. I think it was one of the largest birds I had ever seen really up close long ago when I was working in Goa, and I saw them there along the coast. It's quite a widespread bird, not seen only in Nicobar, but it's seen across a lot of coastal areas. And I got to observe them up close, and they have a very graceful body, very smooth lines, and every time they take off, they seem to just immediately catch on to the air columns and start soaring so beautifully. So I've always loved watching them. And every time they used to come a little closer down as they were soaring up into the sky, the macaques would get really panicky and they would start alarm calling, and the younger juveniles and the infant macaques would start squealing and squawking because they were really scared, because the white-bellied sea eagle is also one of its predators and can pick up young infants and baby macaques as well. So they used to be very cautious, especially when the macaques were by the sea. What about
Ishika, there are two pending
Yes.
questions in the chat.
Sadra and Hill Myna.
Oh, yes. Are they endangered? I don't think the white-bellied sea eagles are endangered. They are quite widespread, but maybe Misha can help answer that question a little bit.
No, I think Anirudh was talking about the macaques, was asking about.
Okay. Yes, the macaques are endangered. There are very few left. There are about 4,000 to 5,000 individuals left in the whole world, because the only place where they are found is in the Nicobar Islands of India. So they are classified as endangered, and they do face a lot of conservation threats, unfortunately. And we have to be very careful about them, because it's also a tiny island, and small changes can really affect their entire population. So it's a place that we really need to be cautious about and conserve well. So yes, the macaques are endangered. Oh, and did I ever get my binocs back? That's a great question. And it's a story I love to tell, honestly. So a little interesting thing about the macaques. Let me go back to that picture. Right. So you can see over here, I'm just kind of waiting, and you see there's one individual here that's watching this individual play with the binoculars, right? And this individual's kind of just waiting in line. So these macaques have a kind of etiquette where, depending on the hierarchy, so all macaques have social hierarchy, but there are some dominant individuals, there are some subordinate individuals, and they have to respect and obey that hierarchy. So if a dominant or a higher ranking individual has the binoculars or any food or any item with them, a less dominant one is not going to grab it or steal it. So what they will do is sit really close by, waiting for them to be done with it. And as soon as they finish, they will pick it up and take it. Right? So here, that's what is happening. And as you can see, I am very far down that hierarchy, right? I'm a very low ranking primate in this big group. So here, I was actually just waiting in line for the macaques to be done with the binoculars so that I can finally pick it up. And they were very curious about this because they didn't know what exactly it was. They had seen me look through it, right? So they did try doing this a couple of times, but they couldn't quite get it. And then they started biting it open and ripping out the eyepieces. And these macaques also eat a lot of coconuts. So they also tried to bang the binoculars against a rock like a coconut. And my heart was in my mouth because it was my only pair of binoculars and I was far away on this island. And I was really hoping they didn't break it. So I waited for a long time, for about half an hour or 40 minutes. And by then, the binoculars had changed hands 3 or 4 times, right? 3-4 macaques had bitten it, chewed it, tested it out, and passed it on to each other. But now it was getting dark, and I started getting concerned that I'm not going to get the binoculars back at all. So finally, what I did was I exchanged a fruit. So we all eaten jackfruit, right? Yeah, so there's another species of jackfruit, which is like a chotu jackfruit, chota kathal, which some of you may have seen or come across. So there was one of those trees nearby, and these monkeys absolutely loved the chota kathal. So what they would do is so I went to that tree and found one fruit which had fallen down, and I basically tossed that fruit to the macaque that had my binoculars, and they exchanged it. Yes, so the jackfruit was in exchange for the binoculars, and that's how I finally got them back. So thanks for that question. Yeah. Yeah, okay, let's move on to this guy. So I think some of you started guessing. Which bird was this? While you guess, the binocs were they were fine. The casing was totally removed, but and it had bite marks all over it, but they still work and I still use them. Yes, go ahead. Which bird do you think it is? You can unmute yourself.
Actually, I wanted to ask you if you can identify which bird this feather belongs to.
Oh, did you find that feather?
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. I mean, it's a huge feather, so it definitely looks like it's come from a raptor. Where do you stay?
In Aldona. But we actually found this in Pomburpa.
Okay. Huh. It's hard to
Southern
say.
Hill
It
Myna.
does. Sorry, who was that? Misha, do you know? I think it looks like a raptor feather, maybe something like a serpent eagle sort of a feather. Misha says maybe peacock. Oh, okay.
Also have a serpent eagle feather here, I think. Is this a serpent eagle? No, this is
A
not.
very generic feather. So it's actually extremely tough to identify birds from the feather, because we already have two people who've raised their hand. Iram, do you want to say something?
I just wanted to say that feather, it's found all around Delhi also, and my dad and I have been trying to figure out what it was, but we came to a conclusion that it was a peahen's feather.
Okay. Yeah, looks like Vishwa has a similar feather.
I guess this is a peacock's feather. In the under feather, we can
So let me share a link with all of you, which might help you identify the feather. This is called featherlibrary.com, which is a museum of feathers from a lot of different species of birds from India. And what you can do is maybe go to, say, the page on this website, the page for the peafowl or for any other raptor that you think these feathers might belong to, and then try to do a match.
We had a session on this feathers to identify those feathers.
Yes, we did last year, and even this year we had a webinar on feathers. So you can go to this website and check out the feathers. But for now, we'll close the feather conversation. We can maybe take it up towards the end of the session if we have extra time. Let's come back to the bird on the slide. And I see that some people have been making some guesses.
Hill Myna.
Yeah, you guys are right again. Does anyone know what kind of call the Hill Myna makes? I have it added in a recording, but does anyone want to try imitating the Hill Myna call? It's full silence. Can someone describe the call of the Hill Myna? Have you ever heard it? Sorry? Someone said something. No? Okay. So it's
shrill sound.
Yeah, exactly. It's got this really shrill, high-pitched call, right? When it goes upwards. So it can be a call that's very startling sometimes. So again, like the white-bellied sea eagles, the Hill Mynas also used to constantly startle the macaques while I was watching them. And for a while, near the sea, there was this cliff that we were working on, and the macaques used to sleep there very often. And in the sleep tree of where the macaques were, there were a couple of Hill Myna nests. And when the chicks hatched, they used to call very loudly, and the entire colony used to call loudly as well, especially when the macaques were around. So it used to often be a complete chaos of both the Hill Mynas and the monkeys kind of alarm calling at each other. So it was very interesting to watch all of that unfold as well. So I've looking at the questions in the chat box. I have heard and seen some videos of Hill Mynas doing some great, forms of imitation and mimicry of other calls. But in my observations, I never saw them imitate the monkey calls. So yeah. Does anyone know what this bird is? This is one of the most rare and unexpected and just chance sightings I think I've ever had in my whole life. It's a really cool bird. Does anyone know what it is?
Albatross ka pyazam.
Okay. Yes, it is very big. It is quite a large bird. Okay. I completely see why you guys are saying albatross. What is it about it that makes you think it could be an albatross? It is a migratory bird, yes.
The shape of the wing may be like it's similar to the albatross.
Okay. Yeah. Patterns, yes. Okay. Amazing. So yeah, you guys are zoning in on what kind of bird it is. And it is a really large bird. It's a pelagic bird, which means you see it, kind of go way off the coast as well, even into the ocean. It is migratory. And you're right, the wings and the beak kind of give it away. It is a lesser frigate-bird. And I was just roaming by the coast very early on when I was starting my work, and I was looking for troops of the long-tailed macaque. And that's when I happened to look up because I saw a shadow under me actually. And I was like, oh, I wonder what this could be. And I looked up and there was this giant bird soaring above head. I'm not sure of whether the lesser frigate-bird is endangered or not. Yeah, like Misha saying it's not. And the albatross is not extinct. But I do know that there are a lot of efforts currently to conserve the albatross and their nesting sites, because I think they are, that is something that they are losing nowadays. Is the male harder to spot? I have no idea actually, because I've only ever seen one. And it was completely incidental. So I was not looking for it and it just happened to be passing by. And it's also actually very rare to see this bird anywhere along that area or that coast. There are next to no sightings on that front. So yeah, I'm again not sure if it's endangered, but maybe I can look that up and tell you by the end of this session. Okay. Priti has done that homework for us. Thanks so much. Okay. Now, can you guys tell me what do you think this is? This is something else that I found. So to just give you an idea of where it is, it's very close to the sea. So this was just off the beach where the rainforest begins, and maybe about 500 meters away from the sea, just inside the forest area. So what do you think this could be? Is it a home? Okay, could be. What else? What are your other guesses? A turtle nest? Okay.
I think it is a nest.
I think it's a nest. Whose nest is it?
Some bird.
Okay. Any other guesses? What do you think it could be? So this is made, as you can see, out of a lot of loose mud and sand. It's got a lot of leaf litter. It's got small twigs, soft leaves. It's in a slightly shaded area, which is also getting some sunlight. A nest of a big bird, burrowing owl nest. Okay, so to give you a clue, this is the bird that builds and makes this. So this bird uses its legs to pull and shuffle sand and mud from around near the sea, in the rainforest, and it creates this. And this, how big do you think this is from the picture? You can tell me in inches, in feet, in meters. Yes, Priti. 2 feet. Okay. Vritti, are you saying something? I can't hear you.
I think the bird is a common moorhen.
Okay. And how big do you think the nest is?
Approximately, I think it's 1 meter.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, Vishwa.
Maybe it might be 5 to 6 feet tall.
Okay.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
taller than both of us.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so we have a lot of guesses. Oh, 10 feet. That would be quite impressive to see. But actually, a bunch of you were kind of right. This current, like the one that you're looking at right now in this photo, this was 3 feet tall, this nest. And it can go up to 5 feet as well. And this bird, which is about this big, when it's completely sitting with its wings in, builds that. But it doesn't do it alone. It does it in pairs. And you were right, it is a nest. And what they do is they create this nest, which is perfectly thermoregulated. So this bird is also called the temperature bird. And what they do is they make sure that the temperature inside is absolutely perfect and optimum for their eggs. So they lay their eggs at different parts inside the nest. And what they do is until the eggs incubate, they don't sit on their eggs like some other birds do, but they just keep adding sand, removing sand, depending on the weather, and making sure that the temperature is just right for their eggs to incubate and hatch. And I think a couple of you guessed it right. This is the Nicobar Megapode. And like you can see, it's actually a very rare bird. It's hard to see, hard to spot. Again, found only in a very few small places. This is definitely an endangered species. And yeah, so this is a bird which doesn't necessarily look very attractive, not a lot of bright colors. And in fact, locally, some of the people even just call it jungly murgi, because it's just a little bigger than the chickens and hens that they have. But it is actually a very rare and very, very cool bird. And someone said, is it like a tunnel inside? So it's not exactly like a tunnel. It's just a big mound of dirt, sand, mud, and leaves. And the eggs are just placed within that. So kind of like how when you order something online and it comes with a lot of packaging and your product is just somewhere in the middle in the box. So it's kind of like that, right? So there have been times where snakes do get in and it is predated upon, yes, but these megapodes, so sometimes what happens is, especially the larger nests are sometimes built with by multiple pairs. So there'll be 2-3 different mating pairs of the megapode, and they will come together to maintain one big nest. And what they do is they do guard the nest and they stay very close by. So if they see any threats like predators coming in, they do whatever they can to keep them away, but it doesn't always work. The bird feeds on insects and fruits, as far as I know, and little other, smaller reptiles and mammals. So it can catch little lizards and things like that and eat them. It does look like a quail, but it's like a big quail. It's much larger. So I'm not quite sure how they check the temperature of the nest. I don't know if that's been studied actually. It would be great to know how they figure that out. So some early bird researchers who went and worked on the Nicobar megapode and tried to understand how this whole thing works. Basically, what they did was they continuously monitored the temperature of the nest using sensors. And from that data, they were able to see that no matter what happens to the weather, these birds will come manage the nest a little bit, but the internal temperature remained very constant. And it was warmer when it needed to be warmer. It was cooler when it needed to be cooler. So that's what these researchers discovered, but they haven't really figured out how they're able to sense that temperature. Yes, Vritti, you had a question? No? Okay. Mohammad Azam.
I have seen a similar bird, ma'am. That is the There is a similar bird called the Mealypowl that makes a controlled temperature nest, ma'am.
Where did you see this bird?
I haven't seen it, ma'am, but I've heard of it.
Oh, very interesting. Thanks for sharing that with us. Can you put the name of the bird into the chat box for everyone to maybe look up?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, this is a very cool bird that I got to see while I was in Nicobar. So let's switch gears a bit. Pull out your notebooks and pens, guys. We're going to do a tiny activity. Is everyone ready? How many of you have seen this bird? Vidhi, Raghav, Vishwa. Who else? Iram, Arya, Zephyr, Anvi. Awesome. So a lot of you have seen it, right? It's a very, very common bird. And it also happens to be one of my absolute favorite birds, mainly because I, again, discovered it when I was very young and I was very fascinated by its behavior. And I'm a very clumsy person. And the first time I saw this big bird in the under shrubbery, and it was just like bobbing up and down, and its wings kept getting caught in random branches. And I totally related to it. I was like, oh, this is a bird who is so much like me. If I tried to climb a tree, I would probably trip and fall in the same way. And it also has these really lovely deep calls, right? Like you just heard. So I was always very fascinated by it. And when I started observing behavior of birds a little more closely, this was one bird that I really used to keep an eye out for, and I would try to note down behaviors very closely. So here's one incident where I was observing the coucal, and then I quickly came home and I wrote about it. Right. So when you're watching a bird for some time, what's really nice to do sometimes is not to just guess what bird it is, but to really observe and see what it is doing. Right? Because if you spend even 5 minutes of continuously watching this bird, maybe hop from one branch to another, look for food, eat something, groom itself. So you really get some insights into the life of the bird and how it spends its days and what is the sort of thing that it does. It tells you a little bit about its environment, what kind of habitats it needs, how the bird interacts with everything else that is going around it. So it's really lovely to just spend some time to slowly observe birds. So here's one entry of mine. Right. So here I've written that the coucal was on the ground among some dried grass. Initially, it took one hop backwards when my scooter approached. So I was on a scooter when I observed it first. Once I cut the engine, it was unperturbed. It was approximately 10 to 15 feet away from me. It walked deliberately and slowly, almost in a gentle waddle, towards a short tree with semi-dry foliage. So I've also mentioned a little bit about the habitat it was in, right? Taking its time, it hopped, it walked upwards with its toes, occasionally fumbling in the entangled thin branches. When it jumped up, it lifted its tail and lowered its body, and then it pushed itself higher with its tail, right? So I was also trying to describe how it moves in the tree and how its tail helps it to move in its tree. It didn't land perfectly each time. It preened itself in short, jerky up and down movements of its neck. While cleaning, picking its wings, the wing would lift like that of a ladybug. Have you guys seen a ladybug open its wings one side at a time, sometimes while it's cleaning itself? Once it finally clambered up to the top of the tree, it pulled itself up to its full size and it looked larger. After looking around for a couple of minutes, it let out a long, unrhythmic whoop, 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 with 9 to 11 whoops. After waiting for a response, maybe it's waiting for a response, it glided off the tree back onto the ground close by and continued walking around and inspecting the ground. And I also noted that its brown against the green field was so beautiful to look at. It hopped into a tall patch of dried grass, and suddenly and clumsily, when a bull walked by it, this was an observation from Goa, by the way, And it kept waddling away at a slightly faster pace until it had passed, and then it flew into a small thicket close by. So this is how I described everything that I watched in about 5 minutes of observation. Yeah, so Misha, I think this is something that comes from studying primates and animal behavior as well, because when animals and birds communicate with each other, they have a very nuanced, very complex language, right? Each bird has its own language, and the number of calls, the pattern in which it may call, all of it means different things. So I was very keen to know, does it always hoot 3 times? Does it always hoot 4 times? Does it change? What does it mean? So these are a lot of questions that would go on through my head. And sometimes if you count the hoops, for example, and then watch what it is doing while it is calling, it could give you an idea of what it means. So closely observing behavior in this way can try to help you figure out some of these questions you might have about birds. Yes, Arya, I think it was inspecting the ground for food. It did look like it was searching for something to eat. Yes, Dakshinesh, you have a question?
Ma'am, I've seen this Greater Coucal twice near my home and my grandmother's home. It was it was so close to me, like about 3 feet away.
Wow,
I
that's
even
super
took a
cool.
picture of it.
Oh, so cool. I'd love to see it sometime. You can email it to me later. Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mohammed Azam.
Ma'am, the greater coucal is a bird from the cuckoo family, but it builds its own nest.
Yeah, it's actually a corvid, right? It's in many ways it's similar to crows. It's called the crow pheasant as well, is another one of its older common names. So yeah, it does build its own nest. It builds interesting big nests actually. Yeah. So just like I did this description of a behavior, what I'd like you to do now is note down the behaviors that you observe in a couple of videos I'm going to show you. Okay. So I'll play each video twice. The first time, if you want, just watch it. Okay, just watch the video, closely observe what the bird is doing, where the bird is. Try to come up with an explanation of why you think the bird is doing what it is doing. Okay. So, and then I'll play it one more time for you to write. And you don't have to write such a detailed description like I just read out also. Even a simple one is fine. Yeah. So let's start with the first one. Everyone's ready? Eyes on the screen. So here's your first video. Yeah, was everyone able to see that video? Okay, so now I'm just going to play it again, and while it plays, I'd like you to note down whatever you've observed this bird doing. Okay, and you can mention any explanations if you'd like. So start writing. I will give you just about a minute. Yeah. I'll play it one more time and then we can maybe go through some descriptions. Okay, would anyone like to read out what they've written? Yes, Dakshinesh, I see your hand going up. Go first.
Can I?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we've got 4 people raising their hands. Perhaps we can go in the order in which the hands were raised. So Dakshinesh, then M. Gupta, then Mohammad Azam, and then Arya.
Yes, sounds good. Dakshinesh, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I noticed that the bird is very small, so it must be slightly, it must not be heavy, and it is twisting its entire body to wash itself at a time. And I think it is sitting or standing on a leaf because it thinks the water is very deep, and maybe if it's not on the leaf, it would sink.
Wow, that's some really good observation, Dakshinesh. Thanks so much. M. Gupta, you can go next.
Yeah. So the bird looked around at its surroundings, bended over, and flapped its tail feathers in the water, sending a flurry of drops and therefore cleaning itself in the water.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thanks so much. Very, very keen eye again. Who is next? Mohammad Azam, go ahead.
I noticed that the bird was taking a bath, and according to me, it is a female thrush, which is of 15 centimeters.
Interesting. Wow. So this bird is the European robin, but I do see why you think it's a thrush. It does have some of that coloration, and you can see all its feathers ruffling, right? So yeah, very interesting. And it's actually, yeah, 15 it's a little smaller than 15 centimeters, but it is, I think, like Dakshinesh was saying, it's quite a small bird. Who is next? Arya.
It is a small brown-gray bird with a yellow patch on its face with a small beak. It was sitting on a leaf in the water, quickly jumping around and dunking its head in the water now and then, as if it was playing or cleaning itself.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Very nice. You've picked up on a lot of things really quickly. Iram, go ahead.
This bird bobs up and down. Bobs up and down while rhythmically calling. It ruffles its wings every now and then and explodes into a burst of color and feathers as it bathes in a pond in a stream. Sorry.
Fantastic. Oh, it's like, even though we just watched this video, from your descriptions, it's like I'm visualizing it all over again. It's so lovely. Very nice. Anika, go ahead. What have you written?
So I wrote it was a small bird with an orange face, white belly, and brown back. It was first looking around and then thrashing about in the water, maybe to wash itself. It was a very small bird, so it's around 13 centimeters, and it was also sitting on a leaf.
Fantastic. I love how so many of you have said that it's sitting on a leaf and that you've really been looking at what it's doing, where it's sitting. Vishwa.
This may be a place of this may be a shallow puddle or a shallow pond, because, or it's a shallow bank, because this bird is very small, and if it wouldn't be also for the leaf, it would sink. And because of its tiny appearance, I guess it would be having a small a hearty bath or preening itself, and as if it couldn't reach out its tail, it was thrashing to clean it.
Lovely. Very nice. As Zephyr and Azuro.
I think it's cleaning itself in the stream on a leaf.
Okay. Nice. Okay, so these are fantastic descriptions. Thanks so much, everyone. You clearly got the idea of what you had to do. And I really hope you guys start writing more of these kind of descriptions for the birds that you're seeing around you. Because I think if you look closely, even for a few seconds of behavior, there's so many little clues that you get, right? About where it is, what it's doing, how it uses different parts of its body. So yeah, this is superb. Misha, you raised your hand.
Yeah, another observation I'd like to add was that it was puffing itself up. I saw that intermittently it was sort of like puffing its feathers also. I don't know why it was doing that. I think towards the end when it turns around, yeah, it just does that. And even on the head, feathers on the head also, they kind of they lift.
Does anyone have a clue why it's puffing itself up? Any theories?
Maybe so that there are okay. Maybe I'll let others guess.
Anika, you raised your hand.
Probably it's a way to make it clean even better.
Yeah. Prithvi?
I think it's trying to warm itself.
Okay. Arya's asking, was it taking a breath to dunk its head? I don't know. It's hard to tell, I think, from here. But given that it went down so quickly, maybe it didn't need to hold its breath too long. Maybe one more guess from Ira.
Normally birds puff up their feathers when they're feeling cold, but I'm not sure that's the case here.
Right. Yeah, I also have a feeling that here they're puffing up just to make, like, to open up the feathers a bit more and make sure the water gets in everywhere uniformly, so that it's not just on the surface that it's getting cleaned, but it's getting cleaned even from the inside properly. So you guys have done a superb job. Let's do one more short video. Yeah. So look closely. Tell me what you think is going on here. There's a little more activity in this video, right? So I'm going to play it one more time while you guys can start writing down. Okay.
Ishika, just one quick heads up here. We're already we're an hour into the session and we have another half hour. So maybe you can recalibrate and pace yourself accordingly.
Sure.
Keeping in mind that there'll be maybe like 10 minutes towards the end for some freestyle Q&A.
Sounds good. Okay, so have you guys had enough time to write down? So I think if you already shared your description last time, put it into the chat box this time for us to read. And maybe a couple of you can read out right now. I see Britti's hand up. Would you like to read out? Okay. Maybe by accident. Anyone else would like to read out what they've written who didn't get a chance with the last video? No? Okay. Yes. M. Gupta, you can quickly read yours. We can't hear you. Are you reading? I think you have to unmute yourself. No? Okay. Maybe Dakshinesh, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, ma'am. So I don't recognize this bird. I've seen it, but I don't recognize it. So my description is the first bird sitting on the branch gives a high-pitched call for food, and the second bird flies in and feeds the first bird.
Okay.
And I'm telling it it's a high-pitched call because when it gave its call, its tails were up, and I think birds do that when they are giving shrill calls or high-pitched tones.
Oh, it's a very interesting observation, Dakshinesh. Maybe one more. Vishwa, would you like to read yours before we move ahead?
Yes. So this was, I guess, a baby magpie robin. It was calling to its parent because maybe something would have got stuck in its throat. And I saw that the adult magpie robin was taking something out of its mouth.
Okay. Very cool. Very interesting observations. I'm not yet going to tell you exactly what happened because I'd like everyone else to add in their descriptions in the chat box. Yeah, and I will slowly read them as we do our activities. Okay. So now that you've had a look at this, and I told you a little bit about some of my early work in the Nicobar Islands, I'll also tell you what I'm currently doing in Assam, right? Does anyone know what this animal, species, bird, primate, what is this? Are you guys raising your hand from the last session? Just unmute and shout out what you think it is.
Primate of some sort, although it looks a bit like a tiny baby gorilla.
Okay, yeah. That's actually very close to what
That's
it is.
lost its nerve. That's lost its nerve.
That's lost its nerve.
Looks angry.
It looks angry. Britti, go ahead.
It can
Just
give on.
unmute.
I think it's a Hulak gibbon.
Okay.
I
Any
think
other ideas?
gibbon.
Okay, yeah, this is a Hulak gibbon. It's a kind of primate, and the kind of the reason I love how excited you just got, Britti. Awesome. Yeah, I think the reason it also looks like a gorilla is because it's also an ape. Like gorillas are great apes, and these are known as lesser apes only because they're smaller in size. They're not lesser in any other capacity, really. So they're the only other ape species apart from people that we find in India. And this is one of the species that I'm currently studying. And as you can see, they have these really long arms. They spend all of their time in the trees. They're completely arboreal, which means tree living and tree dwelling. And in fact, I often say that I call the length of their arms their wingspan just because of how much they stretch, and they're really so gorgeous. So yeah, this is, they also show sexual dimorphism. Are you guys familiar with what sexual dimorphism is in birds, where the male and female look different, right? So that's true even for the Hulak gibbons, where the males and females look very different. And here you can see that the female is a buff beige color, almost brownish, and the males are black. So the one you just saw here, this is an adult male that's fully black and it has these characteristic white eyebrows. And the female doesn't have just eyebrows, she has white all around her face. And what's really interesting is when young gibbons are born, when they are babies, they're completely white in color. And then they very quickly turn into this color of the female. And then when they're about a year old, like this baby here, they turn black. So they keep changing color in the early years of their life. And then once they turn black, they stay this color regardless of whether they're male or female until they are an adult. So until they're about 7, 8 years old. And that's when, if they're male, they continue with the same color, they remain black with the white eyebrows. But if they're female, they turn back into this color when they're adults. So they go through a really interesting process of color change through their lives. And yeah, I agree. They do look like grumpy old men sometimes. So, and they also make some fabulous calls, right? So just here's, oh, sorry, let's start with this. So, this is kind of the habitat and the landscape where I work. So as you can see, there are some tea plantations here. These are the gibbons swinging up in the trees. There are a lot of little trees here, and there's some forest in the background. And here I'm basically standing in somebody's plantation in their backyard. While this is playing, do you guys have any ideas about what the gibbons are doing here? Can you see them moving in the canopy? Just you can unmute yourself and talk. Oh, I would also love to be one of them.
Are they looking for food?
Okay, yeah, that's one guess. Anything else?
I think they just.
And they're jumping and playing on the branches.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're both right. They are looking for food while they are moving, and the younger ones especially are playing. And like you can see, it's really fun, right? Can you imagine how much fun it would be if you could leap like this from one tree to another in just a few seconds? So they're really good at it, and the older they get, the farther they're able to leap and jump. So as you can see, they also spend so much time in the trees, right? And so they probably also spend a lot of time with birds. They also do these amazing territory calls. Have you guys ever heard this call in your life before? So this is the call of the Hulok gibbon, and they, the male and female pair, sing this duet song in the mornings. And they do these calls for many different reasons. They do it as territory calls. Yeah, Umang, I think that's safe to say that this is probably the kind of sound you'd hear at home. And they're also really, really loud. You know, they can go up to 2 kilometers far away. And the reason they call so far is because they need other gibbons in the area to know about their presence. And they're communicating with them across very, very large distances. And even though these gibbons like us, they live in nuclear families. They live with just the mother, the father, and a couple of children together, not like the other monkeys that you see in really huge groups. But there are other small, small families all around, like their neighbors. And so they make these loud calls so that the others can hear each other, just to tell them that, hey, we are here. And yes, they are protective of their territories. So they don't like it when other gibbons enter. And like you can see over here, this is also an area where people and the gibbons interact very closely. And here you see a lady feeding a banana to the gibbon. And they have really interesting relationships as well. And that's what I'm studying. I'm looking at their behavior while they interact with people. So something that I observed, which is super, super cool in this area, is that of the hair-crested drongo and the gibbons, and that they share a very interesting interaction. Have any of you come across the hair-crested drongo or heard of it? M. Gupta,
I've seen it and I've
yeah?
heard it, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. So from a distance, they look exactly like some of the other black drongos, and but they are really stunning. Yeah, absolutely. When the sun shines on them, they are so, so beautiful. And you see those little bluish, greenish, metallic tinges in their color. And they're really lovely. And they're also insectivorous, right? They like to search for insects, just like the other drongos that you may have seen and come across before. And while I was observing the gibbons and following them around, what I started noticing is that this hair-crested drongo, which is a It's a migratory species in the area where I'm working. So they're here, they're not here in the winter, but they're here for the rest of the year. And in those months, I realized that they were always watching the gibbons. And every time I would observe the gibbons, there was a drongo sitting nearby. So I started paying closer attention. And I realized that these drongos are tracking the gibbons. And the reason they're tracking the gibbons is because they were waiting for them to cause some disturbances in the canopy, in the leaves, and shake out whatever insects are there in the trees. So as you saw, the gibbons really move fast, right, in the leaves and in the trees, and they shake the trees and the branches as they move. So if there are any insects which are there, they might get dislodged, or the winged insects might fly away trying to flee from the gibbons. And so the drongo waits for that to happen. And as soon as it sees an insect being flushed away because of the gibbons' activities, they quickly go and eat the insects. So there's a very interesting association here where the drongos are using the gibbons to help forage and find food. So this is a really interesting bit of behavior that I was able to observe and that I'm currently studying as well. Okay, so let me just quickly see if you guys had any questions. There we go. Okay, so I think we've answered most of the questions in the chat box.